All right. Hey, welcome everybody. It's 7 o'clock Wednesday night time for Sci-Fi Distill. Welcome back, Mary Beth, and welcome Alex. Back
Thank you.
again. This is what, your third time, I think?
Something like that.
Something like that. So we are kind of doing this was an Alex request, and partly because we are doing Ryan Reynolds movie because a couple weeks, Deadpool 2, 3. I keep saying 2. 3.
Right in my hometown.
Yeah, right. And actually, it's the same director, ironically, this movie.
Yeah.
And, yeah. So anyway, but before we get into the Atom Project, we are got some news. I'm sure CBS and whatever is probably
We have Paramount news. Super exciting. Wait, so I'm going to give a little shout out to Dr. Alexander, who's probably not watching, but he is picking up the pieces after Hurricane Beryl. He will not be able to come up to Thai this weekend because of that, but we'll see you, Doc, in November. And I'm going to give a little shout out to our friend Mark Patton at Heroes in Action. He is holding a massive warehouse sale next weekend, the June 20 and 21st, like 50% off everything. So if you guys want to go down there and check that out, that's down in Connecticut. If you guys want to go down and pick up some really cool stuff, this would be your chance. Moving on, in the wake of Donald Sutherland's passing, there has been renewed interest in Invasion of the Body Snatchers, the old one, not the remake. Lots of younger folks are suddenly kind of rediscovering it or discovering it for the first time, I guess. And they're starting to say, hey, this might be one of the greatest sci-fi movies ever made. The movie did fare well with critics. It sits at a really nice 93% on Rotten Tomatoes. Rizzo, what say you? Does this movie deserve a spot in the upper echelon, in the pantheon of sci-fi greats?
This movie, the Atom Project?
No, are you not listening to me?
I'm sorry. The Age of the Body Snatchers. I'm sorry. I was like, sorry. I was only half paying attention to that part. I will admit.
All right, never mind.
I was dealing with other things.
There's pop questions in the news.
That is a classic. Yeah, I would say it's a classic movie for sure. And the remake was equally as good as the original, I would say, and better in some ways. It was a little bit more scarier than the original. Well, the original, really, for the time that it was made, was pretty scary. I mean,
yeah, it was
in retro. When you look at when it was made. So, yeah, I would say it's definitely something that goes down with a lot of the genres of sci-fi that. Or the classics
the classics.
I would consider it. Yeah.
All right, moving on with the news. Agatha. It was Agatha all along. The Agatha All Along trailer dropped. It is looking good, I think. It is another foray into various genres, just like WandaVision. Like, remember WandaVision did sitcoms through the years? This one is going to do that too, but it is decidedly focused on the dark and spooky with a definite horror bent. We should also note the show, unlike other Marvel shows, is rated PG instead of G. So it's going to get a little bit scary for the little kids. The series releases its 2-part premiere September 18th, with 7 episodes releasing weekly through November 6th, just in time for Halloween. I am pretty psyched for that. The Acolyte, whether you like it or not, whether you're watching it or not, can we please, all of us, just agree that star Amandla Stenberg, who plays Osha in May, does not need to be getting death threats or messages with horrific, violent, racist language? What? WTF, Star Wars fans? What the hell? Rizzo and Alex, what do you guys think? What is driving this backlash against the new Star Wars offerings?
Well,
honestly, I don't even think it's Star Wars specific at this point, not to detract from Star Wars, but I'm also a fan of Bridgerton. And Bridgerton season 3, part 2 just dropped with a few changes, some people of color, some same-sex relationships, and the fans are going rabid. There are at least 4 actors that are that I wouldn't be surprised left the project because of how insane fans are getting with death threats and just constant stalking of their social medias. And no matter what they post, fans are always at them for things beyond their control, regardless of if it was in their control or not. We don't need this kind of rabid behavior from adults, so to speak. I think it's just wild. I was talking to Michael actually about how wild Star Wars fans were with things like that. And I was like, I I don't think that's actually it. And I'm going to take this moment to publicly apologize. I was wrong, Michael. You were right. People are just crazy.
Please, everyone
Don't
make
do
a
that too
note
often.
of that. I want everybody to make a note of that.
Timestamp.
Yeah,
Run the classes one a few times is going to happen.
Yeah, it's the toxicity has gotten to a level of ridiculous. And it's not just Star Wars. It's not just Bridgerton. It's any people have somehow, and this has always been a thing, but it's gotten worse. Is this ownership feeling that they somehow the fans feel they own these IPs outright, and we saw
We're here so we need to entertain us kind of thing.
When the fan films were getting crazy and people were getting mad at CBS for shutting certain groups down, and it's their IP. You don't own it. It's not public domain stuff, and they can do whatever you want. Now, I'm not a particularly fan of the Acolyte show. It has nothing to do with race or gender or anything. It just has this not well written, in my opinion. I'm saying don't think it's a very good story, but that's just me. I mean, I just choose to watch it or not watch it. What I'm saying? I'm not going to go after the people that made it or the people that acted in it. If you know what I'm saying, and that goes for anything, even the newer Star Trek. I'm not a huge fan of it. Okay, well, some people are, and that's great.
It's not worth ruining anybody's career over.
Every time, like I always said this, like when they rebooted like Lost in Space on Netflix, did Lost in Space, and I actually liked that series. I thought it was pretty well done. It was not a remake of the original show in any way. It took its own take on the story, and people were freaking out. This is horrible, the hardcore fans, and I'm like, you know what? If you don't like this particular show, that's fine. You can choose not to like it. That's your right. And if you really, really are upset about it, you always have the original to fall back to. You know what I'm saying? Just go watch the original show on DVD or whatever, and sit there and be happy.
It's like a buffet. Just take the stuff you like, leave the rest.
Yeah, it's
my favorite comment to people like that who are just we're here so entertain me kind of thing is like if you're so qualified and you think you can do something better, then go do it. Go make your own fan film. Go write your own fan fiction. Why are you here ruining my time?
Well, that's really it. It's just live and let live is what really comes down to. And if the shows really are not good or they're not popular, that's going to result in the views and ultimately financially. We all know that they only make these things to make money. So if it doesn't make money, it's going to be canceled.
Yeah.
That's the end of it. You know what I'm saying? It's regardless. I mean, yeah, it's just silly. And this is going on, even get out of fandoms. It's like what we see with social media. Somebody says that it's these people that, what was it? The pizza place in Washington or something. They thought it was a,
traffic.
The whole thing. They thought it was like a child pornography, something or other. It was some QAnon thing, and they went and like tried to ruin this guy's business. And it was like he didn't do anything.
It was just a pizza place. Yeah.
Yeah, it was just a pizza place. So it's just that kind of craziness is what the world we live in. Unfortunately,
that's true.
So, anyway,
right. let me plow through the last news item because I would like to hear your opinions on this as well. So, guys, it looks like it's official. David Ellison's Skydance Media has finally made a deal with Paramount Global that calls for Ellison to become the chairman and CEO of this new Paramount. And former NBC Universal CEO Jeff Shell, he will take operational reins as president. There are still complicated regulatory approvals coming. But that's okay. It'll probably pass. Skydance and its partners will invest more than $8 billion in an effort to reinvigorate Paramount. So you're like, great, Raybeth, that's fabulous. But what about Star Trek? Well, I will tell you, the new leadership team laid out their plans for the new Paramount, and they did mention Star Trek. And they have 4 things they want to do. And Rizzo, I want you to listen to these 4 things. I want to hear your opinion on it. Thing number 1, they want to rebuild Paramount Plus, the streaming service, which desperately needs it. Make it work. Number 2, they will be looking at more licensing deals and something called windowing for Paramount-owned content, which could lead to Star Trek streaming on other places besides Paramount. 3, their investor presentation, the presentation to the investors, noted Star Trek as one of the key franchises, and they want to reevaluate franchises to fuel, and this is their words, not mine, a powerful and repeatable IP ecosystem. And we can hash that out a little bit. And finally, 4, Ellison talked about unifying franchises across TV, film, and interactive media, which could potentially lead to a more comprehensive Star Trek universe. I don't know if this will affect James at all, so never mind that for now. I think they're going to try to follow the Star Wars MCU Disney model. Rizzo, what do you think?
Oh, wow. I mean, a lot of that sounded like corporate jibber jabber.
Well, the one that makes me nervous is this one that says they want to reevaluate franchises to fuel a powerful and repeatable intellectual.
I don't even know what that means. What does that mean?
The word repeatable.
I have no idea. That's the jibber jabber. I don't know.
Yeah, that's the corporate jibber jabber. The word repeatable makes me nervous. I don't just want like candy cutter. You know what I mean? Like when the plots are not original. I don't want non-original stuff. I don't
necessarily think that's what they mean by that. I don't know what they mean, but I don't necessarily think that's what they're saying. But with Star Trek, I don't know. Maybe, I mean, I'm trying to be hopeful about it now that, okay, we got some kind of fresh blood at the helm, and maybe they'll see that, make some changes and go back. And I'm hoping, my hope is that they look backwards and what was when Star Trek was great and what made it great. Yeah. And let's look at that and try to bring that back. I think we've lost that with the current Star Trek.
Yes, I think you're right, but I don't share that hope. And the reason why is because Skydance was executive producer onto the JJ Treks.
That's true, and that's true. And I'm not saying that that's going to happen. I'm just saying I don't know what else to think at this point.
Star Trek: The Acolyte.
I mean, you look at the most successful thing they have done with aside from Lower Decks, which again was a fan-driven kind of, or directed directly at fans, was season 3 of Picard. And why was that so successful? Because they went back to, not only did they kind of go back to a time when what we wanted, but they brought in people that knew Star Trek and had worked on those Star Treks. So we had that kind of base, as opposed to just bringing in new people with new ideas, which is always good. But you don't want to change too much of your concrete foundation. You don't want to dig everything up and start over again, which I think is what they did. And I personally don't think it was a great idea.
Yeah.
If you like it, you're a big fan of Discovery and Strange New World, that's great. Maybe it did bring in new fans, but it really didn't do much for us older fans. And I'm okay with that, but I think they should, at least with there's so many shows out there, have a show for the old fans, have a show for the new fans.
Oh, yeah, it's the buffet theory again. Why can't there be a buffet of Star Trek?
Yeah, exactly.
And you take the ones you like?
Anyway, we will see what happens.
We will. And interestingly enough, the very first thing when I turned on the Adam Project today, what was the first logo that came up for me? Skydance.
Yeah.
So.
Anyway. All right.
Are we drinking anything tonight while we're talking about
a drink? Yes.
You have a drink.
Call the Time Traveler, of course.
The Time Traveler.
Vodka, Campari, fresh orange juice, passion fruit puree, lemon juice, and some splash of soda.
Nice.
So, kind of refreshing. I don't know. Try that.
Vodka and Campari,
yeah. Could be good.
And OJ, a lot of sugar.
Is it called the Time Traveler because you end up blacking out and going off into the future?
and having
quite enough alcohol in it for that, but
depends on how many you drink.
Yeah, that's true. All right, so the Adam Project. So this was a Netflix, at least in the States, it was a Netflix exclusive film, and had quite a cast actually. And it's definitely, I would call it, into the family film realm. There was certainly some violence in it, but nothing that I would consider by today's standard as pretty tame violence overall. I mean, when you look at the overall
but I'm glad that you brought that up, because I was noticing that on my last rewatch, and how kids movies tend to get away with the violence that they have because there's no actual blood and gore, right? Because these are time travelers, so every time that they get killed, they just explode in this Thanos type dust, and it just kind of it dehumanizes them. And I feel like if there's ever an argument to be made about how media affects children, I just can't help but notice how many more films there are that do this to human beings. And then I see how real life children treat human beings. And I'm like, it's almost like we could explode in front of you and you wouldn't care.
Yeah. Growing up in a time when Bugs Bunny was probably the most violent thing on television for children. And if you remember those, the Roadrunner getting slammed by exploded, burnt, Daffy Duck getting shot in the face how many times with a shotgun, and I don't know, did it affect us? Did it desensitize us? I don't find myself shooting ducks.
The thing with things like that is that it's animation and it's animals, right? Like it's a 2D picture, it's animals, it's not the same as human on human violence.
I agree. You're right. And
yeah, but we had the Three Stooges. They were always beating on each other.
Were pretty violent.
I don't remember ever doing a stooge thing to any family member.
Yeah, I don't big trouble. I don't know. That's probably another discussion for another time as to how whether violence affects. Because I don't know if Mary Beth might remember, there was a time when they tried to take all the violence out of the Looney Tunes, where they would take out everything. So, but it was so horrible because at this point the cartoon didn't make any sense, because every time somebody was hit or got hurt, they took that out. So it didn't. The whole cartoon was just a jumble of nothing. It was.
Yeah.
That was like in the 80s when everybody was like really worried about, and then they're
violence,
like, okay, clearly we don't have a generation of serial killers because of Daffy Duck. But anyway, my point was that on the grand scheme of what kids are watching, and I remember, this is where I kind of like with my daughter growing up in the early 2000s, and I remember her wanting to watch The Walking Dead.
Yeah.
And I flat out said, no way. There's no way, especially when they got to the Negan years. There's no way. I mean, the stuff they were showing on television was making me squeamish. And she was like, well, my friend, these are like middle school kids, and they're all my friends all watch. I'm like, I don't care what your friends are, you ain't watching that. No way. So I think like what kids do watch, this was pretty tame, is what my point is.
That is true. I mean, I'm one to talk. I was a huge fan of Buffy from the age of 9 years old and up, and let's talk about humans exploding. So, I mean, yeah. We've all got dust on our hands.
Yeah. So, I mean, violence, like, we've talked about before on this show, violence even in films and scariness has ramped up in the last 30, 40 years. We talked about, like, we were talking about Jaws, and at the time, Jaws was considered a very scary movie. And now we're like, this isn't scary at all.
No. Or look at The Boys. Like, look what goes on The Boys. Could you imagine that show on TV back in the 70s?
No, not even close. Not even close.
People would plot. There'd be so much pearl clutching.
They would be they would never have gotten it, because
they never wouldn't get past the entire show would be bleeped out.
On broadcast television is still restricted to some degree. It's the cable and satellite that and streaming services really that can do whatever they want, because they're not as regulated by the FCC and those because it's considered pay television. So they can pretty much do whatever they want. Anyway,
that's
I don't want to talk about that all night.
Back to the Adam Project.
Back to the Adam Project. So the basic idea is that this pilot, who's in the 2050, I think, is the year that it starts, and he's running. The movie starts with him running away from somebody, and he in a jet, and the jet is a time machine as well. He goes back in time, and he meets himself as a 12-year-old boy. And I got to say, the kid playing the young Ryan Reynolds does a really good job of kind of mimicking some of Ryan's.
Do you guys know how he got that role?
Yeah, because he'd seen Deadpool like
1,000 times and just recited a full Deadpool monologue. behind the scenes, Ryan and Walker, I can't remember his first name, but the kid, Walker, the two of them would riff off of each other, and they would improv some of the scenes, and they would give like 10 jokes and 10 different responses all the time. Ryan had said it was literally like working with a younger version of himself. So
Yeah.
I would have loved to have seen the whole thing, like just film the entire experience. I'll watch 20, 50 hours of that.
And he looked like once they put the brown contact lenses in, he
Yeah.
had that look about him.
Yeah,
Very
I mean, he did a really good job of mimicking his mannerisms and the way he would deliver. So it was very believable that he was this, the younger version of himself. So I thought that was really good casting, and obviously the kid had a thing for Deadpool, which why wouldn't you? Because
Who doesn't?
who doesn't?
Yeah, honestly, who doesn't?
If you want to see more of him, he's moved on to, I think, Percy Jackson.
He's a
movie.
Percy Jackson. Yeah. So basically, he's going back in time to fix time because the father. We find out that the father is the guy that the guy that invented time travel, and then there's this other woman who basically manipulated time travel to benefit herself and basically take over the whole time travel thing and become rich and all that. And that's kind of the basis, is they're going back time to fix this. And then Zoe Saldana plays his wife, who is already back in time. She's also a time pilot, whatever they call them.
But do you remember what she was originally, what she went to school for? I'm hoping my Star Trek fans don't let me down here.
Computational linguistics.
Kind of a little nod there, no?
I just said it. Computational linguistics.
Yeah, Uhura.
Sort of.
That's a later years Uhura thing.
Yeah, that's the news.
Yeah.
That's a Zoe Saldana Uhura.
That's
It's
Zoe
not a
Saldana. That was
yeah.
the point. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, we didn't tell you. Nobody likes JJ Trex on this show.
No JJ
Okay,
Trex.
but I love Zoe Saldana, so I'm just going to represent.
No, I've always said that on the
For
JJ Trex, the
sure.
casting was good. I've always said that casting was good on JJ Trex.
Yeah, the casting was okay on JJ Trex.
Yeah. So, nothing against Zoe. She's been in some great stuff, of course, Guardians of the Galaxy, and she's actually in a really good show on Paramount Plus. What the hell's the name of it? I can't think of it. Lioness, and she plays kind of a federal agent handler of.
Oh yeah, I saw ads for that.
She's for people that are in, like, deep cover. So it's actually pretty good show. So I recommend that one. Anyway, so moving on. So that's kind of the basis. It's just basically that we have to fix the timeline kind of thing. Ironically, this is the second movie that Mark Ruffalo plays a scientist where he's messing around with time.
Yeah, he's messing with time. And he sounds like he starts to deliver those lines in the same way now. Like he just.
Yeah, I mean, again, this one I like in the sense. I mean, he at least brings up, the whole paradox thing that you can't go and start changing things. And I also love the way they just blow it off, like, well, it's already been changed, so we're just going to keep messing with it. So,
Also, sorry, Maribeth?
While this was admittedly a common trope, we'd seen this before. I thought this was a really cute and sweet and fresh take on it. Like,
Yeah.
You weren't bored. You were like, oh yeah, okay, cool. Like you kept rolling with it.
Yeah, it moves along. It's not a terribly long movie. I think it's like an hour and 40 minutes or something like that. So it's not like you're investing a massive amount of time. It's certainly not like, 2 versions of Dune or something like that you have to slug through. But so it's entertaining, and I think that's what its goal was, to just be kind of fun and entertaining, and
yeah.
And you get to just see Ryan do Ryan things.
Ryan be Ryan. Yeah.
I love the scene where where he gets in the fight with the kids, and he's standing there, and he's like, "You're not going to do anything." He's like, "No, you're going to go in there, and you're going to kneel and kick him in the nads or whatever." And of course, the kid just gets his butt kicked, and he's like, "He didn't do it." Of course, once the kid runs away, then he kind of goes, "It's like, I will." What do you say? I was like, "I'll find you, and I'll rip your bones out, and like,
take your
I'll
bones out.
use your bones to stab him." So,
I love his line that he said.
think about that. Wouldn't you love to do that to any bullies you had when you were a kid? Come back as an adult.
Of course, we all would. Yes.
Of course, yeah. I love the line he gives younger Adam too when he gets back to the house, because I think all of us with that warped sense of humor kind of understand. And he says, "You don't get from you to me without getting your ass kicked like 100 times."
Yeah.
Those of us who have been severely bullied and have that like sense of humor now, we're like, "Yep, yep."
Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't know if I agree. I don't know. I don't know if that's really saying, well, I'm a better person because I was bullied as a child. And
It's not saying I'm a better person. It's saying this is how you get that, like, this is how you get this demeanor.
certainly develop a shell or like there's, a callousness, I guess, to.
Yeah, you develop your defenses.
Did we ever find out what he did to get kicked out of college?
No, they didn't really flesh out. They don't know what he got arrested for either. Because remember, he said in 2 years something you get arrested. He said something about being arrested. So they never really said. Of course, then he ended up with as an Air Force Academy for a pilot. So that was kind of interesting.
Super interesting.
It was very JJ Trek in the sense that you went from being
JJ Trek. Yeah,
you went from being a delinquent to an Air Force officer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it probably helps that the time jets are being developed by your dad and his co-worker.
Very funny how Mark Ruffalo's character developed the video game that young Adam is playing, which also looks very much like pod racing, but that's a whole other thing.
But the cockpit looked like the cockpit, you know what I mean? Like it had the same layout.
Yeah, exactly. But not only that, like he develops the game that Adam plays, which eventually is what started his pilot training, very much like Starfighter.
Oh, yep, that's true.
Little reference there.
There was a ton of nods to different things in this movie.
Yeah.
I mean, it goes on and on. I thought the one I laughed out loud at was when the kid gets a hold of his staff that he kept calling a lightsaber, which was funny.
That was your funniest. I think my favorite was Superhero Landing.
I didn't finish my thought. And he goes flying up and he lands with his knee, and he says, "Superhero landing."
Sorry.
The superhero landing. So that was from Deadpool. I was like, it's really hard on the knees.
And actually, speaking of Deadpool, when they all play catch at the end, there's a sticker of both the Hulk and Deadpool on their case that holds all their sports balls.
Yes, there was right. I noticed that there was a Hulk on there. Of course, like we already mentioned, Ruffalo was already, doing the time travel thing. Mm-hmm. The dog's name is Hawking, which is after Stephen Hawking.
And fun enough, 2018 is when they have to go back, and that's the year that Hawking died.
Yep. Lot of MCU very, very well represented in this cast. Very much so. Actually, was there anybody who's not been in the MCU? Catherine Keener, I guess. Has she? Gotta look her up.
Actually, I find it so funny that all the adult actors, like the main adult well, I guess except for Saurian, but like Mark Ruffalo played the Hulk. We've got Ryan Reynolds who played Deadpool. We've got Zoe Saldana who played Gamora, and we've also got Jennifer Garner, who, as much as some people wouldn't want to mention one of my favorite movies, but she did play Elektra.
She did play Elektra. You're right.
All Marvel characters.
That is true. Even but there's like tons of nods, like the hotel that he stayed in, it was the Pine Ridge Motel, was a nod to Back to the Future with the Twin Pines Mall and all that. Yeah, that was all.
As was Saurian's entire plot, like the fact that she goes back and she advises her younger self and all the stocks to invest in to become rich and screw over the main character.
That was a Biff thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Trying to think of other things that happen.
Oh, I'm surprised you haven't mentioned this, actually. Ryan Reynolds gives young Adam the nickname of Red One, or Red Leader.
Yes. Yeah, I did catch that. Red Leader, that of course from Star Wars. during the Battle of Yavin was Red Leader. Even things like Doctor Who was represented in the main reactor, in the Soren facility. The door looked like the navy blue color with semi-opaque window design was basically taken from the TARDIS. So they were definitely making nods to a lot of things. So in a lot of ways, this is designed not only for kids but fans of our age. I think that would keep picking out these little things that if you keep watching the movie, you'll start to see all these little things that they stuck in there here and there. That were done. And I love it when they do that stuff. They take the time to do that stuff because I think it really does add to the film. At least it makes it rewatchable because you keep looking for more stuff.
Did you look? Yeah.
I really love how well crafted this movie was. Like you said, there's so many references that just pay homage to other things that we've seen. There's humor at all stages, I find, like at all developmental stages. So whether you're a child or an adult watching this movie, you get some sort of enjoyment out of it. And the fact that it's so fast paced and yet there's so much emotional connection, which I think is a huge, what is the word I'm looking for? Probably due in large part to the cast that we have. I've seen a lot of complaints saying that Adam's wife, we didn't really have an emotional connection to her. And by the time that we see things happen to her, some fans were kind of wondering, why do we care? We haven't seen enough to build that emotional connection to her as a viewer. But to me, I find Zoe Saldana is such a loved actress that you really only have to give her 2 or 3 points of connection, and that's all you need for that story to kind of complete itself. Not only that, we get the story between young Adam and older Adam with his mom, and also young Adam and older Adam with his dad. There's so many emotional connections. There's so many personal stories being told, surrounded by such high impact action. It's one of those movies that it's not Star Wars or Lord of the Rings, but it is something that gives you a lot to appreciate.
Yeah. One of the things I thought that they were going to do the first time I watched it, and then when I just recently rewatched it, was I was sure that they were going to make Mark Ruffalo, after they fixed the time, Mark Ruffalo's character would have been still alive when he goes back to the president of 2021 or 22, whatever it was supposed to be.
Actually, funny enough, the producer in there, as soon as they signed Mark Ruffalo, they made a clause saying that they were not going to bring him back. Louis' story was never going to be this happy thing.
Well, what I thought they were going to end up doing was that Soren, whatever name was had actually had him killed, and once they got rid of and fixed all that he would live because again he had invented time, and that his death was related to him being, to get rid of him out of the picture, so to speak. That's part of her. That's what I thought they were going to do. I was kind of surprised when they didn't do it. I almost thought it was going to come back in like the credits, like he just comes home, like, and they're all like nothing ever happened. But that's not the route they took. It was a true and actual car accident. Or that he would pull the Doc Brown thing where they would stick something in his pocket,
Yeah.
Future. Don't go out on this day in your car.
Yeah.
Sorry, Maribeth, go ahead.
So going back to the Zoe criticisms, the movie undercut itself on that, and I don't know whose decision it was. I don't know if it was an editing decision or it was actually written this way, but they do a really great job when she's like, okay, you got to go. I'll hold him off. You got to go. And they do a great job with that scene. They do a great job of Ryan Reynolds driving away, and he's mad. He's like pounding on the steering wheel. Great. Very emotional. Cut to, they escape. They're now in the jet, and he's back to quipping and like, saying the funny liners, and they're going to decide whether or not to jump. And they were like, woo, let's do it. Like they were too happy. Like he just said goodbye to his girl again after losing her. Thought she was dead, found her again. He's really upset to leave, and he left pretty happily. So the movie undercut itself there. And I don't know whose decision that was. Was it the director? Was it the editor? Was it the writers?
Yeah, one of the other things I thought that was a little I mean, obviously the whole movie's unbelievable. It's not, but I mean, one of the things that didn't ring really true to me was when the younger Adam was kind of schooling the older Adam on this is how you felt and this is how you should have felt.
You're mad because
you
he
were doing
died.
this, and I'm like, you're 12.
You're 12. You don't know that.
You don't have this insight.
Yeah, that comes with age and wisdom.
It didn't ring true to me at all.
Yeah,
as far as
I
the way he was
completely
kind of
agree with that.
psychoanalyzing the adult.
Yeah.
You know, and
It's
this
still
is
a fun movie. It's got some weird little things. Like, how come the magnet only pulled the bullet and not the entire gun?
That was actually one of the goofs that they
made. You know what it's like? Because the movie was so damn fun. You know? It just, yeah.
Right.
It undercuts itself.
Yeah, I think we need to give kids a little more credit there. I mean, like, if he was using psychological terms, for sure, but, like, I don't know. I feel like as a kid, understanding defense mechanisms, I don't know. I found that part believable.
I thought it was a little too much. I just having not remember his dad had only been dead 2 years, and he's already analyzing his 40 because remember Ryan is essentially 40 years old in this film if you do the math.
Mm-hmm.
And there's an argument there for like cynicism versus the innocence of being a kid, though, because like at 12 years old, like you're only just starting to get the girl problems, the bullies, the usual things that come along with adolescence, but you haven't had anything really come along and wreck you and really pull you down and bring in those defensive and cynic kind of ways of behaving towards
he was basically analyzing him, saying this is why you remember your dad this way because you wanted to hate him because you didn't want to miss him.
It's easier than being
I think that was just too much. I think there was just too much thought in that process for a 12-year-old to come up with that theory.
Yeah, I don't think kids can do that kind of transfer.
So, I mean, when I was 9, I mean, not to, maybe I might be a special case, I don't know, but when I was 9 and I lost my mom, I was sat there right there with my aunt doing the same little thing. So I don't know.
Maybe
I just don't think kids get enough credit.
Anyway, that was just my feeling on that. So let's just go through the cast. I know we've already kind of had, but I want to go through the cast because there are some notables beyond who we've talked about. Let me get back to. So of course Ryan Reynolds, we know we don't have to really talk about them, and then we've already talked about Walker. Now, he hasn't done much other than Percy Jackson after this, but he certainly was a great call. And then Mark Ruffalo, who of course, was the best Hulk out of the three for sure, by far. He's also done a lot of other great movies. And then Jennifer Garner has her own. You guys know her, not only from Elektra. What was the show that really put her on the map? There was a TV show.
Alias.
Yeah, Alias. Yeah.
Alias,
so that was that's what really got her on the map. And now, she hasn't really done a lot film wise. I don't think lately.
Not to mention the fact that we get Mark Ruffalo and Jennifer Garner together as a couple
since
13 going on 30. Yeah. Like, come on. I was so excited to see that on screen, and I was so heartbroken because I remember seeing the two of them in the ads and not really realizing what had happened. So I'm sat there as a 13 going on 30 fan going, yes, we're getting Maddie and Jenna back together. Let's go. And 5 minutes into the film, we find out we don't get Maddie and Jenna back together.
Well, I'll let that one go because I have no dog in that fight. Zoe, we talked about, of course. Not only was she Uhura in the JJ reboots, she of course played Gamora on the in the Guardians of the Galaxy series, and so she's obviously well-known actress and very good actress. The other one I wanted to really mention though was Kathleen Keener, who was the bad guy in this film. And of course, most people probably remember her from like over 20 years ago when she was in one of my favorite movies, which is the 40-Year-Old Virgin.
Yeah.
And she, of course, was very funny in that. And they did now for her character, she did play both the young and older self, but they didn't use the CGI de-aging. They actually did a deep fake on her. And they had another actress, I think, do the body double, and then they just did her face. They did a really good job, I think, on her, because she really did look like the younger self. It didn't look fake to me. I don't know what you guys felt, but
I'm going to have to disagree with you there. I was getting a lot of Uncanny Valley there.
I wasn't. It didn't bother me. I was fine with it.
Really?
It didn't look like she did not look alike. They did not do a good job. It was two different faces, but it didn't bother me that it wasn't a human
face. I'm just saying the younger version of her looks like she did from 40-Year-Old Virgin. You know what I'm saying? 20 years ago. I thought it looked, that's what I'm saying. It looked right to me. So I thought the older version of her, because when they first came on, I didn't recognize her right away. I didn't know I didn't know, who was in this movie. I just watched it. And I'm like, why do I know her from? It's her voice. It's driving me crazy. And then it clicked. Oh,
she was in Being John Malkovich.
She was in Being John Malkovich.
The penny has dropped. Yeah. I don't know. It didn't bother me too much. The deep
I thought they did a pretty good job. The rest of the cast is fairly, as far as I know, not really well-known people.
Hey, and we need to probably mention that Jennifer Garner's dog.
Right, it was her dog.
Was in hockey for one scene or two scenes, not all the scenes, I believe, but he was in there.
Yep,
he is Instagram famous.
Instagram famous.
Yep.
I guess we can also mention that poor Walker lost 4 teeth on that set. They were going to come out anyway, but he lost.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he did. And 2 of them were in the front, so I think they had to make him a little fake bridge just for those scenes. And then let me just talk about the effects. I mean, I thought the effects were pretty decent, but some of the choices, I need to ask Dr. Man or some of the guys about this, because I never understand why they make the choices they made. So the
invisibility.
Well, yeah, the chase through the woods scene that had real Jedi vibes, riding through the forest, Jedi, Return of the Jedi vibes. But they're in this truck. The truck was real, but on a green screen. So the 3 of them in the truck faking that they're being chased. The guys on the surfboards chasing them, real, and on wires, dodging real trees. Why do they make that choice? How do they marry that together? That to me is fascinating. Why didn't they just CGI the whole thing? Or why didn't they just
lots of production meetings that they decided that was the best way to do it, I guess. I don't really know how they make those decisions. Maybe Darren would be a good person to ask that. Him being involved.
He's an artist. I don't know if he knows.
Well, no, but he's in the special effects realm, and maybe he says, "Well, you could do this and this and sometimes." I always think practical effects still look better. Generally,
way better, infinitely better. Yeah.
So I think maybe that's what they were going for. But yeah, why they would do it the way they did it, I don't know.
I would just like to see people who off-road a lot watch that scene, and I just want to hear how loud they laugh.
It's not I did notice. They're flying through the woods at they're supposed to be going how fast, and this truck is it's not even bouncing. It's they're driving on a highway.
Yeah, because it was on a green screen. It was just on a slider.
Yeah, no vehicle. I don't care how good an off-road vehicle it is going to be able to tear through the woods at that speed and not break an axle or something.
Yeah,
which it was not a good off-road vehicle.
Yeah, it was silly. But I mean, these are suspensions of disbelief that we let go for the film. We're not
his house and the little shed garage thing in the back. That was a sound stage. It looked beautiful. I would love to live there myself. But it was a sound stage. I don't know. It's just weird. They just made
I mean, they always have those kind of houses in those movies. You ever notice that? They always have these really perfect little plots of land.
They did not use the volume for this thing.
One of the things I thought in the beginning was kind of didn't sync up was in the first time when the plane first comes back to 2022 and the kids, he's out and he goes out in the woods and he sees all the embers coming down, that whole scene. He's and then he gets scared and he starts running. It's wait a minute, you walked in the woods for 2 seconds and now you're running for a half a mile to get back to the house.
But was there not kind of an ET nod in that whole scene? It kind of felt
like it. And
there was a jump scare. When he goes into the dad's garage and he's shining the flashlight, he goes right over Ryan Reynolds sitting there. And it was a huge jump scare moment. I was oh, okay, we've seen this before.
I feel like that moment could have had more intensity and tension to it had we not opened the film. We obviously know that Ryan Reynolds doesn't normally play a bad guy, but at the same time, had we not seen the intro scene, it would have made that scene a little more scary, in my opinion.
That's true, but I think if they ramped up the scariness of that scene, the audience would spend the rest of the movie waiting for Ryan Reynolds to double-cross Walter, what's his bucket? Walker, little
what's
kid.
His bucket? I love that. Yeah.
I think they needed for him to come off as friendly and most importantly, believable right off the bat. because that kid handled that really well. If I was 12 and this version of me came walking up, no, that wouldn't fly. I would not believe her for 1 minute.
I'd be like,
I mean, I guess I'd see resemblance because it'd be way more resemblance. I look like my family members, but I'd see that. I'd figure it's a relative, it's a cousin, it's someone's who I didn't know about. You know what I mean? I would not for now.
He kind of said, he did tell them things that he would know.
True, and they had the same scar.
Yeah,
I know, I get all that.
So there was some stuff that they went through.
But I'm thinking back. I can't think of anything I could tell my 12-year-old self. I mean,
there'd be lots of stuff I would tell my 12-year-old self.
I can't think of anything like, okay, 12. What was I even doing when I was 12? I don't know. I could talk to my 20-year-old self. That would be fine.
Yeah. I would rely on the same thing that they did in the movie. I would just be like, here's my scar. It looks just like yours, and here's how you got it. I know because I'm you.
Oh, yeah, no, I do have a scar. Yeah, that's true. Okay, I have one scar that maybe could be believable, but other than that, I can't even, like, I've repressed my entire childhood. It's gone.
All the scars I have as a kid have faded and are gone.
It's gone
forever. I also feel like I would just go like this close to my 12-year-old's face and just be like, look at my eyes, sweetheart. Who has eyes like these and who else is going to be as talking about them?
I have
Even a 12-year-old has things that most people wouldn't know. You know what I'm saying? True. Whatever they did something, they got away with it, whatever. You're going to say, here's what you did. I know.
My dad might be watching.
Yeah, not till my teen years. I'd have to visit myself much later in life.
Yeah.
Mary was a goody two-shoes as a child.
I had a very, 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 very strict parent. I had no opportunity to do anything. So.
Oh, you just weren't clever enough, is what you're telling me.
No, maybe, but and you've met Liz.
I still did stuff that my dad went to his grave not knowing about.
See, that's because you've older sisters. They were too busy worrying about them. I was the oldest sibling. I had to toe the line, and then it was my brother who got away with murder.
Well, I don't know about that. We'll see.
We'll see. We're all grown up. There's no more seeing.
Just saying, I don't know.
It's a done deal. That's how it works in families. Hey, come on, Peanut Gallery. Start typing.
They're very quiet today.
Yeah, they're very quiet.
Yeah. So, did you guys pick up the big paradox that they created that didn't that they didn't get called? There's a huge paradox at the end that they don't even. Okay, so Soren shoots her younger self, correct, killing her.
She dies.
Okay, so she dies. So if she dies in 2022, she can't be alive in 2050 to go back to 2022 to shoot her.
That paradox has cropped up in movies before, and I think
just one of those
Hollywood
paradoxes.
has yada its way out of that one.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those movies. You just go, it's a time travel movie, and
Yeah.
Okay, if we're poking holes, though, how about at the beginning of the movie when Adam can't get into the ship because he's injured, and he's like, the ship's going to know I'm injured, and it's not going to clear me for flight. But you, however, it'll clear. And I'm like, okay, so the ship can tell that you're injured, but it can't tell that you're 12 years old? Really?
It should have been able to tell that. Like, hormones would be completely different.
Completely
from your 12-year-old body to your 40-year-old body. So the ship
not to mention like your hand, your finger itself was going to be smaller.
If the ship was sophisticated enough to be able to tell that the pilot wasn't able to fly, it sure as heck would have said he's too short to reach the pedals.
Yeah, exactly. And the invisibility things being super inconsistent, and like I don't understand. Like,
we lost.
Come back.
She's back.
Oh, sorry.
You blipped.
Thanos tried to snap me, but I came back. Yeah, I don't understand why they had to make themselves visible before contact, because you do see points where they're invisible and they have contact. And why the hell they were invisible for the entire trek up to the house, but all of a sudden, what's his name? Hawking sees the guys at the door. Like bore they get to the door, he sees them.
Well, he
and
smells them. Why would you say he smells them? He doesn't see them. We'll just roll with that. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of very, very convenient for movie making purposes things going on in this film. And one of them is Catherine Keener. She shoots herself and she immediately disappears. But it takes the boys so much longer, long enough to go play catch because the movie needed that scene, right? Like,
well, okay. But the answer to that one was, remember, they did mention, you saw that with all the other guys. As soon as they killed, they went, that somehow time sucks them back immediately. So that may be why, and they did say it took a long time to set her. So again, it's all BS anyway. But I mean, at least it makes more sense to me that she died because when she died, just like the other guys disappeared instantly.
Yeah.
So
yeah, you're right. She should. Now that you mentioned that, that's bothering me. That whole end. Oh well.
Time travel is a hard thing to make a movie about.
Well, because it is to make one of any sense. It was funny, and this is a side note. I was watching a video with Neil deGrasse Tyson. I sent to Mary Beth where he goes through his favorite science fiction movies, and believe it or not, one of his favorites that he put near the top was Back to the Future. He thought this was he thought Back to the Future was the best time travel movie ever made.
And we're like,
right.
I think this movie needed something like Terry Matalas. Remember Terry Matalas did 12 Monkeys? That's time travel done very, very well, I think.
Yeah, but keep in mind, this movie was not supposed to take itself very seriously.
Yeah, that's true. It
was just strictly supposed to be a fun movie. It was supposed to have a lot of action in it, which it did. It's just supposed to be a straight entertainment movie. There was no real message here other than, don't mess with time, which, as if Hawking was still alive, he would tell you that time travel to the past is impossible anyway. Yeah. So,
well, like I said before, I'm going to let some
director has deemed that time travel is not real.
Yeah, exactly. I'm gonna let slide because the movie was just so damn fun, and it was just worth the price of admission alone just to watch Adam and Adam, Ryan and Walker bouncing off each other. Like that part was just fun.
And that was it was enjoyable in that sense because that's what it was kind of funny. It was watching. Yeah, you did feel like you were watching the younger self with Ryan.
I would say I kind of disagree with the whole there's no message here with this movie. Like it's obviously not an after school special. It's not built on any sort of message. But a line that I wrote down when I was watching that I really liked, I actually wrote it for the purpose of the foreshadowing because Mark Ruffalo kind of states his own death and says, he tells his students that physics is a slog. You'll be working on problems that your children will solve. That's how slow the physics world is. You'll never live to finish your life's work. Somebody else will do that for you. And I just find that with the messaging between younger Adam, older Adam, and their father, and the students in physics and all the things that you have to solve as well, through many different lenses, I find that to be the most powerful message through that, is the things you do today might not be quick enough to affect you, but the things you do today will affect the people of the future. Now, whether that's a good effect or a bad effect, that's for you to decide.
Yeah, that's a little bit. It's
I think that was in the movie. I think that's. I mean, I don't. It's a valid point, but I think they put it in the movie because it did connect things because it did take his son and everything else to try to finish his work.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? In a way that it was kind of all connected to fix everything. So I think maybe that's where they were going with that. But whatever. We all take away things from movies and different things, and I just don't think the director, the writers, when they wrote this thing, it's not like this. This movie it wasn't like Schindler's List where they were trying to make a point.
It wasn't a deep.
It was just meant to be an entertaining film.
Much like I did say, it's not an after-school special. I did say that. But Ryan Reynolds pulled this script because of the relationships that you have through the people and the fact that there was so much action, there was so much story to tell, but there's still an emotional connection between young Adam and his father, older Adam and his father, and the two Adams themselves. I just really enjoyed that.
If you notice on my thing, it said should have been a Spielberg joint. Spielberg tends to really kind of dig down into fathers and sons. So it's so much of this movie, so much of it said Spielberg. Like it so easily could have been a Spielberg film.
I agree, very much so. Especially in the scene with older Adam and his mom, and he's trying to have an emotional connection. There was a bit of a scare there because, like, if you take away the family relation, they are both very attractive people. They're talking about very heavy emotions, and there's like a common starting point of things that could have happened from that dialogue. I was really glad with the way that they took and that we did not go down that road, but we did see that connection of like, I'm trying to go back and kind of fix what I did as a kid, and you need to understand that you did great and you're doing great and you have a lot on your plate as well. And I mean, as a kid who has a lot of regrets with my own parents, I just really loved seeing that conversation of, you're going through a lot right now. And even in the back of his mind, he's just thinking to himself, I didn't realize that as a kid. And he says that to younger Adam, like, she's going through this, that, and the other thing, and you can't give her 2 seconds of real sympathy or empathy.
But if younger Adam was smart enough to figure out that he wasn't mad, he was sad, he should have been smart enough to figure out his mother could have used a hug.
Yeah, I agree.
Good point. So Robin is saying that she feels it's weird part of the planes was that I know we're kind of going back a little. I'm reading some of the comments, but was designed to strand a pilot in different time if they're injured.
Yeah. Zoe's like, I did the protocol. I just stayed here and lived my life. I'm like,
you know, it would have made more sense if the plane would self-destruct so that if somehow the plane couldn't go back, like it was abandoned, that it would self-destruct.
Yeah, it should just automatically.
So it wouldn't be ruined. You know, it wouldn't be found, and then screw up the timeline. That would probably make more sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So where was Zoe's plane? Like the parts and pieces should have been laying around somewhere, right?
We assume it disintegrated enough. Well, they said it burned up, right, on reentry. So
it blew. Died. So how did she land? Did she come in? How did she land?
She might have ejected.
Were they in the atmosphere or the stratosphere?
Yeah, we would assume that she ejected at some point and the plane burned up.
She's tough. They took her because she and Ryan both have a lot of experience now over the years at combat scenes and stuff, and they took great advantage of that. I thought they did a really good job.
Yeah.
Well, if you want to see her do more of that, watch Lioness.
There were a few moments actually. Ryan Reynolds wields the dual non-lightsaber. And he does a little flip thing behind his back, and it's a little defensive move. I wish I would have I recorded it as the gift to share to the chat because it's so amazing.
Let's just unpack that lightsaber for a second. It cut things. You could pound it into the ground and it would bounce you, or you could make a shield with it and you could just hold it. You don't have to spin it or anything. You just hold it. And it would make a shield. Like it did so many things. Did you notice how he used it?
Very magical.
Yeah.
Very magical. Magical double-ended lightsaber. Way better than Darth Maul's, I think. Fair.
I'll concede to it being better than Darth Maul's lightsaber, just not better than Darth Maul himself.
Darth Maul could have done. See, if we had gotten Ray Park, I think Ray Park could have done some interesting thing, like the choreography for that. Like just the fact that you could not bounce, but like it propelled you. You could. I don't know.
I'm 50-50 on the Darth Maul thing. Like half and half.
But
it is 8:00. On that note, we're gonna have to wrap this up. Unfortunately, sorry, I just had to throw that one in there.
I have to say, Ryan Reynolds did this like flip thing with the non-lightsaber behind his back, which was exactly the same move that Ewan McGregor does as Obi-Wan Kenobi in his fight against Darth Maul. And like the way I jumped up and started cheering when I saw that. Loved it.
Yeah, like I said, and I wouldn't be surprised if they did that on purpose, if that was another nod to something. The whole movie was just little nods to things.
A lot of nods.
Things, so I wouldn't surprise me if they did that on purpose. Okay, so it's a very enjoyable movie. I give it a thumbs up.
Yeah, go watch it.
If you haven't seen it, go watch it. We haven't spoiled that much. I mean, it's the movie. The plot is not. There's not a lot of twists. I mean, you pretty much figure out where it's all going to go.
It felt fresh. Felt different.
but it didn't. Yeah, it didn't
Sure.
feel like. Yeah, it was in. It's good. Good effects. Is it was good action scenes. I think overall it was a pretty good movie. I think it was pretty well received on Netflix. I don't know what ratings it gets. I didn't look, but
Yeah.
Also,
I think
Ryan Reynolds and Sean Levy did Free Guy together, which is
so.
also another great movie. And if you're having a Ryan Reynolds night, I definitely recommend that movie too.
I feel like
Yeah,
they
and
did
again,
Free
if you
Guy.
have, if you've got kids and you want to watch something like this, it's a good movie to watch with them.
Absolutely.
We'll be, of course, in Thai this weekend. So if you're coming up to Thai, we'll see you guys for Shatner. If not, we won't. I don't know what we're going to do next week, as usual. Something. Come up with something. Don't know. As usual. What does Roy got going on? Did Roy
Roy's
finally
off.
get the...
Roy's off because he will also be in Thai. And when he finally gets back, not this weekend, but next weekend, he will finally maybe do Wild Wild West, I guess. I don't know what's happening with that. Phil, he's on tomorrow. He doesn't have much planned. He's going to talk to Michael Schilling from Shore Leave, because Shore Leave is the next up-and-coming event, Star Trek event, after ours. So that's what's going on in their worlds. We don't know what's going on in ours. And I guess we'll see you all in
when Roy's going to get to Wild, the West isn't going to be wild anymore by the time Roy gets
the West will have been tamed and conquered and industrialized with choo-choo trains.
All right. On that note, I will say goodnight. Alex, thank you for joining us. Always a pleasure. And Mary Beth, of course, always a pleasure. So we'll see you guys in next week. Till then, live long and prosper, and may the force be with you always. Good night, folks.